Hello, beautiful people. I am Patrice Renee, and this is Divine Operation University, aka Do You. Today, we're talking about self love. Now, I consider this like my self love 101 course because I really like to break down everything that we at Do You define as self love. Now, why does this even matter? In short, it doesn't, unless you're someone who wants to build a stronger, more intentional relationship with yourself, and in turn, pretty much everyone around you. Now, how's that possible? Well, by getting to know yourself. So, what is the self? Previously, we've defined self as the entity underlying all subjective experience. And we know the subjective experience is our unique individual perspective and our interpretations. So, the entity or distinct being that experiences from our point of view is the self. Now, in the world of Do You, we say the self is comprised of three separate entities, which are the mind, body, and spirit. And we've come to learn that they each have their own ways of communicating, their own lessons to be learned, their own superpowers, desires, and ways in which they challenge you. By forming and fostering individual and collective relationships with these elements in mind, we believe you're practicing self love. So let's get started. With the mind, they speak the languages of knowing and doing. So to know is to be aware of. The mind houses information and becomes our conscious knowing for our conscious awareness. It pulls together all of the information that we get from outside of us, like the things that we learn from school, from our parents, from our relationships and conversations. It's essentially everything that we see and experience all comes together to form our conscious mind. It also speaks the language of doing, which to do is to perform or achieve. The mind does this by thinking and processing. The challenges or lessons that the mind is taking on include learning how to feel from the body. So the body can teach the mind this action feels like this, right? When I say I feel, it's because I'm doing this particular action. So the mind can kind of learn to interpret in their own way. The same way someone might translate from a foreign language to English for their parents, right? They're going to translate that language based on what it is that the parent can relate to. So the mind and the body are speaking back and forth through action so that the mind can learn what feelings are and what they mean, if that makes sense. The mind is also improving its knowing with the spirit. So we know that it already speaks knowing, but it's improving it alongside the spirit. By communicating with the spirit through their common language of knowing, the mind increases its own capacity to know. So if the mind is our conscious knowing, the spirit is our subconscious knowing. And so these are put together between the two so that they can both better understand each other's side of things, and then our whole self as a full entity gets its best understanding of knowing as it comes from our own perspective. Now, I consider the superpower of the mind to be processing or thinking, right? They take all of that information that we get and they file it so that we can recall quickly. We can recall memories. We can recall knowledge. Just any and all information that we get throughout our entire lives gets filed away in a very sophisticated process so that we can quickly recall, make quick decisions, have conversations that are fruitful, and share our ideas in ways that are clear and articulate, right? All of this happening within our mind in milliseconds or whatever a smaller time increment might be. It's a powerful processor. that really takes informations from our experiences and our lessons and turns them into useful knowledge. I tend to think of that episode of SpongeBob where he forgot the name and he ends up like burning down the whole filing system and wreaking havoc because he couldn't find the name. Obviously, I don't want us burning our minds, but what I'm thinking of is that filing system. There were a bunch of SpongeBobs working in that office and filing away all of the information, right? I kind of think that's how the mind works, and that's its superpower. So then there's this way in which it challenges us, and I call this seeking balance, right? So we need to seek balance in the mind, because the mind really likes knowledge. It likes information. It likes to ask more questions and let's stop and think about this. Let's find out more information, right? So to balance that out, we probably just want to start taking action. Again, the mind speaks the language of doing, so it does also appreciate just getting things done. But we need to get out of our head and into the world with this particular set of action to find this particular balance. So we can compromise with the mind essentially, because in our experience, we do gather more information. So going ahead and taking action will create that balance while also feeding the need of the mind to get that information, right? Speaking of, the mind does desire, when it comes to this relationship it has with us, the mind does desire conversation. That's why there's always chatter going on in our minds, right? So if you want to participate in the conversation, you want to practice self-love, be present in those thoughts and steer the conversations that the mind is having. Connect with it in that way. Being mindful is a phrase I'm sure you've heard, and essentially it's just connecting with the mind in a meaningful way. The mind in this way gets to use its powers for good, for your benefit. It gets to act in ways that move you forward, where you actually want to go. By actively participating in the conversations with yourself, you help train that filing system so it keeps the information that's most important to you at the forefront and does away with what's no longer needed. Moving on to the body. The languages that it speaks are doing and feeling. So, as we said before, to do is to perform or achieve. And in this case, it's a more physically action-based achieving, right? Getting things done in our everyday life. So, our body has many functions that are happening throughout, as well as everything that we do in the world happens with our bodies. Me speaking right now is happening with my body. You can't see me, but I'm moving my hands. That's happening through my body. Moving around all day, every day is happening in the doing of the body, right? That is it speaking and communicating. It also feels, and to feel is awareness through sensation. So the body uses our 5 known senses to move throughout the world and allows us to perceive what's actually happening in said world. The body is learning to know from the spirit through their shared language of feeling. So you know that pit in your stomach when something isn't quite right? Yeah, that's these two. At the same time, it's improving its doing alongside the mind. So sharing our thoughts or moving on what we think is the next step, in that the body gets quicker, as does the mind's processing. The superpower of the body is expression. So being vocally expressive, aesthetically, artistically, taking action, showing off our style, whatever it is that we can do to show more of our individuality and who we are, stems from our body wanting to be expressive, speaking our mind, sharing our voice. There's just so many ways we can live out the superpower of our physical body. Now, again, we are challenged by the body, and so to find balance, your body wants to feel good at the end of the day. So it's going to ask for more of the things that make it feel good. And it's your job, in order to create that balance, to not give in to those feelings. Essentially, practicing discipline. It may be time to tell your body no sometimes. It's probably not going to be your favorite thing to do, but it definitely helps keeping your body in check and making sure that you're not giving in to those sensations at the expense of the rest of your whole self. Now, ultimately, the desire of the body when it comes to this relationship is appreciation. Simply showing appreciation for the body can be done in all the ways that you care for it. Adorning it, giving it rest. Find out what your body needs by talking to it, paying attention to those aches and pains. Maybe you've had them for a while, or maybe they just popped up, but sitting with them and really finding out where they're coming from, or what thoughts you may have been having that are making them show up in you today. What feelings you might have been feeling that you're not really paying attention to that are now turning into physical manifestations of illness. All of it matters when it comes to a relationship with self and when it comes to practicing self-love. So finally, we have the spirit, which speaks the languages of feeling and knowing. So again, to feel is awareness through sensation, although this time we're talking the sensations outside of our physical senses. At this point, at Do You, we consider this emotions, the feelings within that greatly impact that subjective experience we talked about earlier. How you feel about a situation can really alter how you experience it. And then there's to know, which again is to be aware. And we're considering spiritual knowing or awareness as our intuition, right? That inner knowing that comes from way beyond the information that comes outside of us. This is information that comes from inside of us. Then the lessons being learned by the spirit include learning to do from the mind and improving feeling with the body. So the superpower of the spirit is being. Simply being is a privilege, and to be is to be present and take up space. Allowing your spirit to be means releasing the expectations, the regulations, really anything that isn't from you, from within you. Now, finding balance in your spirit means you stop ignoring your intuition. Essentially, you learn to trust it. You come to trust your inner knowing and believe that what you feel matters. The information that's coming from within you matters. And it means something to you because it's coming from you. You truly value that information. It may be information that you don't have a logical explanation for, but as you lean into it and grow into it, you realize that it's still important information and a lot of times true information. So really leaning into that trust helps you to balance your spiritual energy. So what have we learned thus far? That the mind, body, and spirit each speak to us and each other in different ways. They have their own wants and they each challenge us in different ways. The relationship that we're building takes time, effort, and attention. And that relationship is exactly what we consider love. This is the intentionality in self-love. After today, it's not just a phrase. So let's break that down. Love is deep affection, taking interest, to enjoy very much, feeling attachment. All of these definitions have motion behind them. They're action words, and they have qualifiers that make them more intense than simply liking or caring. And that seems pretty appropriate when talking about yourself, right? So, what are some of the actions you can take to really be in this relationship? we've decided at bare minimum you can start with communication, compromise, and commitment. Communication is the exchange of information. So, in your conversations with self, there's information you provide and the information your mind, body, and spirit provide. If we look back, the languages they each speak, you can clearly see what information you can get from each entity so that you move through experiences informed, and then you can send your request to each entity with that information in mind. This is a key component of relationship. It allows you to see what the future could be, what the present really is, and even make sense of some of the past situations that you've experienced. Because conversations can also be used to define the relationship, define what it is, what you want out of the relationship. Use conversations with yourself to help define what comes next. Talk to your body when you have aches or just to say thank you. Talk to your spirit to find out more of what it wants, what it sees for you, and how you can grow. Figure out if any of that feels good in your body or if it makes sense given the circumstances, because that's going to help you with the next component of the relationship: compromise. This idea of compromise can also be called prioritizing. We're asking ourselves what gets done first or with the most attention at this moment. We're prioritizing our goals and efforts so that they don't feel overwhelmed with what's in front of us, and it doesn't feel like a chore to do certain things in our life because we know the benefits that it has for us and we can actually enjoy the relationship. We move forward grounded in the knowing that I'm prioritizing myself, my goals, my desires, my health, my wellness, really all the things that matter to the whole of me. And knowing that makes this last component that much easier. And that component is commitment or taking responsibility for yourself. Keep the promises you make to yourself and commit to making it happen. Don't make it a habit to let yourself down. Don't train yourself to accept less than you deserve. Some guidelines to help make this make sense might include treating yourself how you'd want your children to be treated. Think about all of the interactions that you've come across in your life and put your future child, your current child, your inner child, if you're child free by choice, put that child in these positions and think about how you would want them to be treated in all of those situations. And then be the other person in that dynamic. Make sure that you're treating yourself with love and care and compassion and grace. You can also talk to yourself how your dream partner would talk to you. Don't settle for anything other than love and sheer adoration from anybody that you're sharing yourself with, which means you're teaching yourself in this moment how to accept love and how to be loved. So make sure that you're setting yourself up for the utmost success and love on yourself. Treat yourself very well in these moments, in these days when it's just you. You really want to get to the point of moving through life how your highest self is calling you to. Like in a perfect world where nothing is in your way, how are you moving? Not just that there's no punishment for your actions, but the world where you don't even have the thoughts to do something that would require punishment. The world where all of your wants are here, your needs are here, everyone you love has the same abundance, you're safe, you're secure. Now, how are you moving? How do you talk to people? How do you talk to yourself? How do you spend your days, your nights? What really gets your attention and effort? Dig into that energy and that atmosphere and bring as much of it as you can into this world. Okay, so why does all of this matter? Why bother with this breakdown? I know that there's so much that we don't know, especially when it comes to our mind, body, and spirit actually working and functioning. There's an immense amount of inner workings that would break us just trying to figure it out. So having a framework that lets us see clearly what's in our wheelhouse of understanding and what definitely is not lets us back off a bit and just appreciate the ones that are picking up the proverbial slack. It doesn't help that I'm a Virgo, so I like details and compartments. So this becomes a foundation for a more detailed, tailored, in tune relationship with self. This love comes in knowing who I am and what I need, allowing me to be intentional with my self-care, and that to me is what makes it love. With all of this in mind, you are bound to pay a little closer attention to what's happening inside. Feel free to leverage the intercommunication happening between the entities to further your growth. You may have a better relationship with one entity, so use that to your advantage. Learn from each and every one using your understanding of these different languages and how they communicate with each other. Maybe it's easier to connect with your body because it's physical, it's tangible. So use it. Gain clarity on what the spirit is feeling or what the mind is doing. Do whatever you can to build a more loving relationship with yourself. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me. I'm Patrice Renee, and this is Divine Operation University. If you like what you've heard today and want to hear more, please do like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Love you. Bye.